Hi everybody, what's good? I'm Campbell, this is SJ Thunder Warrior, and today we're going to talk about how to bring your bases from looking like this to this to being pretty freaking awesome like this. So please add, subscribe, like, comment, spread us around your social media network, send out telepathic impulses to your friends to come and check out our channel, and let's get painting. To begin, we're going to need a few things. We're going to be rocking out, first off, with Rakarth Flesh. I can never get these things right the first time around. Pallid Witch Flesh. And this is pure white from Reaper Minis. I like using this more so than the Corex white because it comes on a lot smoother, it doesn't get chalky as quickly, and also the dropper bottle is super handy. And then last but definitely not least, we have some Agrax Earthshade for our general shading. And then just in case, if we find that we want to make things a little bit more contrasty, we can also have some Newland oil, but you don't really need Newland oil for this. It's just a nice little like extra thing. So in addition to the paints, we also have our brushes. Now I've been doing a lot of dry brushing, and my dry brushes are looking really rough in a lot of different ways. And hey, that just shows that they've been living their best life and been put to good use. So I've been reading and listening a lot about makeup brushes. So earlier today I had to make a run down to CVS. I also picked up a package that had 4 makeup brushes in them, and I'm going to try using 2 of them today, but I'm actually kind of excited about using these, especially on something like this. So going to be doing something a little bit new here. If I find that the makeup brushes don't really work out on the first piece, then I'll switch back to my old faithfuls, and this might be their last couple rides. First thing you're going to do is that you're going to get your brush, and since we're dry brushing, we can go straight from the pot. We don't need a palette, and I would actually say if you're going to be doing a lot of dry brushing, don't put this on a wet palette. Wet palettes are awesome, they're super useful, super handy, but in this case, in the case of dry brushing, you don't want to use them. So we're going to start off with the Rakarth Flesh, and I've shaken this up a lot. You always want to make sure, especially if you haven't used your paint in a while, to try and get it as well mixed as possible. And if you can see here what I did, I just dabbed. I didn't dip right into the bottle. I just dabbed a bit because I'm going to take this and then I'm going to wipe most of this off for the dry brushing. And you can actually see, oh wow, that's actually very nice. You can actually see how it's just only getting the top parts. You might be able to see it's only getting the top parts of the paper towel. Yeah, so it's only getting the top part of the paper towel, and it's just leaving just a very fine little dust there. So gonna start putting it down, and you know, you can really just go swirly around here, and oh wow, this is actually coming out really well. Oh wow, I'm just double checking, making sure that you guys can see. So just with one layer that probably took just a few seconds to do, bam, we already have a really nice color. Look at the contrast between the two. Barely no time at all. we're just we're just flicking it back and forth lightly, giving it a nice dusting. And because these bases are like a ruined temple bases, you don't have to worry about them being all even or all one. Check this out a bit. You don't really have to worry about them being totally even in your dusting, because you're going to be putting several. We're going to be putting a couple of layers on here. So this is going to be interesting. So let's see. There is a lot going on here. Let's start off. Beautiful. Wow. I am really, really digging this. You see, it's always good to be able to get surprised. To be surprised. Because I knew that these were going to change and going to make a... I knew that using these brushes were going to be a bit different than using, like... Definitely different from using this. This poor thing. It's going to go out to pasture. But I really didn't expect it to quite feel the way it's feeling right now. Like, this is... I'm doing so little work for such great results. Now, you might be wondering, why are you using Rakarth's flesh? That's a flesh tone. Well, it is and kind of isn't. There used to be a color that I used to love using called Deneb Stone. And that was actually not too far away from the Rakarth. Rakarth? Rakarth. I don't know why I put that extra I there. It's a Marylander in me. And that was actually a really great stone color. And what it was actually a little bit paler than this, but not as pale as the Pallid Witch Flesh. So that's why I would kind of have the two kind of layered, one on top of the other, when I do this. Man, but like, I just really like what's going on there. So, because this one is more tall and vertical, I'm actually going to try just kind of coming down all in the same way on this direction on this one. In there. Pretty nice. Gonna try and highlight those. Yeah. Okay, so that was step one. Dry brush everything with Rakarth's flesh. Next, we're gonna dry brush everything with the Pallid Witch Flesh, and then we're going to dry brush everything with a little bit of the pure white, and then hit it off with the Agrax Earthshade. A little bit more on here, and we're just gonna, yeah. And now, I'm gonna go over this one. Just to get the tops. And you can see that there's more detail coming out now. Good. Gonna get some more. Do it a little bit heavier on this one. So let's go. So with this, I am gonna be more purposeful here. So now we got getting our second layer, and can you see the kind of the difference between the part that I have shaded and the part that I haven't gotten to yet? So what we're doing is basically adding layers and depth. If you've ever looked at take some time and if there's a granite building or anything like that nearby, just look at it really, really closely. and you'll see that it's not just one color, it's several colors that are a bunch of colors that are all mixed together. So that's what we're kind of emulating here. Part of me just kind of wants to, like, after this is painted, take like a really fine point Sharpie and write like AB loves EJ or something like that, or maybe Catherine and Tona were here. I want to make a nice little Gaunt's Ghost reference. Yeah. For your brushes. So I'm going to put this over to the side, and I'm going to try using this tip with the pure white. I'm going to put some of the pure white on here. And I'm just going to dab a little bit. And just like before, I'm going to wipe it. It's probably not going to be as clear on this one. So now let's see. For this, I want to just really focus on the edges here and just like highlighting those. And like, oh, another pro tip, when you are wiping your brushes on the paper towel, make sure you're not wiping it on a wet spot on the paper towel, especially if you're like me and you might have I been oh I hope I kept those in the frame. So now I'm gonna do this. Actually, I think I'm gonna need a little bit more after this last one, because this last one just uses this pedestal piece, takes up a lot of paint. You know, and sometimes you make mistakes. Sometimes you put too much or too little on an area. Don't worry. And if it gets really bad, you can always fix it. That's the great thing about this hobby. And also, if it doesn't look the same as anyone else's, hey, that's totally fine too. It shouldn't look the same as anyone else's. Why do that? Now, if I was going for this to be more like a stark marble, I would probably just go dry brush of the Dracarys and then the pure white over it. But because I want it to be a little bit more like brown and earthy, more like a stained, more sandstone-y, if that makes sense, than marble. That's why we're doing it like this. So, and also the cool thing is that since it is dry brushed, this actually paint dries very, very quickly. And yeah, I really, really like this. So I'm going to clean this brush, and then we're going to get into the Agrax Earth Shade, and we're going to start shading these. And that's the second to last step. That's too good. Okay, so for the next part, we're just going to use a straight up size 2 brush. You can really just use any brush that has like a large-ish reservoir, because it just really doesn't matter. You just want it to be able to hold a lot of paint. Now, I am going to be using this base holder, this handle grip. You don't really need to, but just given how Agrax Earthshade and like the other shades can just kind of go all over the place, I just find this to be a useful tool. So, got our Agrax Earthshade open. I'm just gonna dip it in, and I don't think you can see this, but you just want to don't dip the brush all the way down to the metal, because you don't want to get like the shade or the paint like in where like too deep, and that'll like mess up the glue and whatnot for the brushes. But you do want to just give it a second to just soak up as much of that paint as possible. And now we're just gonna start going in there. So I'm gonna try and like cover up as much of this as possible. And this isn't precision work at all. One of the reasons that I came up with this particular method for doing painting miniatures is that I do not have good eye-hand coordination at all. My handwriting is terrible, so bad that like back in like the 90s when I was in high school, and personal computers weren't really that popular. Like almost nobody did their homework on computer back then. I'm really dating myself, but my history teacher, Mr. O'Brien, love him to death, said, "Man, Campbell, you just have to do all of your papers typed because you're brilliant, but I can't read what you're writing." So I adapted, and this is another way that I adapted. Because if you notice, we're achieving some pretty great results here, but we're not doing like painstaking freehand or things that require like a really, really steady, firm grasp or even like a sharp point. Like we were dry brushing. That's it. And that's why dry brushing to me is like really liberating. Oh yeah, so one thing. When you are doing, especially like resin models that have resin bases that have like deeper cracks and everything like that, you do want to make sure you do get a lot of the wash of the shade rather inside the crevices and cracks, but you also want to make sure you're not like totally drowning it. So once you get most of the paint off of your brush, just go back in and just I'm just letting it drink some of that back. Yeah, you can actually use your brush tip to just soak up some of the excess wash, but you do want to make sure that it gets down there in the first place. So you kind of have to like dump it and then slurp it up. Hope you enjoyed this little foray into resin basing. Remember to like, subscribe, add, and spread the word about the channel. And I will be looking forward to hearing back from you, and you be expected to sing some more both hobby and role-playing game related content coming right at you soon. Peace.